Good afternoon, everyone. Myself, Gurvinder Kaur, along with my co-host, Ms. Meenakshi Sharma, on the behalf of ITS College of Pharmacy, welcome you all on the third session of fourth day AICTE Atal Academy sponsored online faculty development program on drug engineering challenges and innovation. This third session is going to be very informative and interesting, which will be conducted by Dr. Meenakshi Bajpai, HOD and Professor of Pharmaceutics, IPR GLA University, Mathura. Dr. Meenakshi Bajpai is graduate and postgraduate from University of Sagar, and earned her doctorate in pharmacy in year of 1985 from Dr. Hari Singh Gaur Vishwavidyalaya, Sagar. She has also done diploma in human resource management and MBA from Indira Gandhi National Open University, New Delhi, 1996. With a teaching and the research experience of more than 33 years, she is a member of various professional bodies, actively engaged in research on targeted and topical drug delivery system, and has over more than 70 publications in Journal of International and National Beauty. She has 1 patent, 2 books, and many book chapters in the international books. She has handled various research projects and has guided 19 PhDs, in which 11 are awarded and 8 are still working. She has also guided more than 143 postgraduate theses. Not only this, Dr. Bajpai has also awarded as Best Paper Award and Professor M.L.A. Khurana Memorial Prize in the field of pharmaceutics and biopharmaceutics in 2012. She was a chairperson session on the pharmaceutical technology 16th IPC New Delhi 2018. Also a chairperson in a conference on nanoformulation and translational research, Small Getting Bigger, organized by Babu Banarsi Dal University, Lucknow in 2015, and many more. It cannot be covered here. She is also participated in various national and international seminar and conferences in the various capacities of organizer, invited speakers, and chairperson of the scientific session. We are honored to invite you, ma'am. Ma'am, welcome, please.
Thank you, Gurvinder. Am I audible?
No, ma'am, you are not. You are not audible.
You cannot hear me?
Yeah, it's okay now.
Huh?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, ma'am.
Thank you, Gurvinder, for your introduction.
Welcome, ma'am.
Good afternoon to all the participants. I would be speaking in a topic which is my interest area. Basically, I would be talking on pharmaceutical excipients. This is my topic, and I hope there would be some value addition to your knowledge, to all the participants of this FDP. There would be value addition, and since it's a long duration of my presentation, it's 1.5 hours. So I hope we'll have an interactive session from your side, not a session whereby I just go on talking. And sincerely, it would be an interactive session. And I'm thankful to Dr. Praveen Gaur for inviting me for this particular FDP. Thank you, Dr. Praveen Gaur.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for coming.
For this thing. And if it's fine, I can start with the screen sharing. Is that start with the presentation on pharmaceutical excipients. All of you are familiar with pharmaceutical excipients, and basically we have been familiar with pharmaceutical excipients, I suppose right from BPharm first year, we start with pharmaceutical excipients. I would be basically covering a brief history of the excipients, basically pharmaceutical excipients, a brief review about their classification. My focus mainly would be on the global pharmaceutical excipients market, on the IPEC, that is International Pharmaceutical Excipients Council, and EXIPAT, and other avenues for the growth of pharmaceutical excipients. It is not going to be a traditional discussion of carbohydrates or gums or mucilages or so on and so forth. Basically, a holistic perspective of pharmaceutical excipients. Basically, if we trace the history of excipients, so the first record is of 1550 BC, when the first Egyptian pharmacopoeia is reported, which had about 700 formulations. So the first basic record is of 1550 BC. Then the next timeline is basically of 200 BC, when report of plant-derived excipients being used in traditional Chinese medicine. Then 100 BC, when a Greek physician first used syrup of lemons as an excipient. And then we come to 1493 to 1541 AD, when the first ointments and tinctures were reported. So obviously, we used excipients for that. Then, of course, the first pharmacopoeia was basically published in Basel, Switzerland. Then other pharmacopoeias, 1820, the United States Pharmacopoeia, and then in 1849, the Theophilus Redwood Practical Pharmacy was published. And here the first modern use of the word excipient was ever made. Then, of course, the British Pharmacopoeia in 1864, Martindale 1883, the Japanese Pharmacopoeia 1886, and in 1970, the USP and the National Formulary were combined, bringing the National Formulary's focus on excipients into the pharmacopoeia. 67, the European Pharmacopoeia was published. And in the 70s, basically the pre-mixed excipients were introduced primarily for film coating. Then, of course, the famous book, Handbook of Pharmaceutical Excipients, was published in 1986. And now we are into the 9th edition of this book. And I suppose all pharmacists and all pharmacy professionals would have used this book at some time or the other. Then the International Pharmaceutical Excipients Council was founded in 1991 with the purpose of harmonizing the different standards and ensuring the quality of excipients. Then, of course, 89, the USP, the European Pharmacopoeia, and the Japanese Pharmacopoeia collaborated together for your international harmonization. Then, in the 1990s, the excipient source and batch variation was researched. And in 2050, the USP Good Manufacturing Guide for Excipients was produced. So this is just a brief history how basically pharmaceutical excipients have moved from before Christ to the 2050. And the references for what I am telling you are shared, like this is from aboutmedicinescomplete.com, and this has been sourced from that particular thing, right? Then when we come to the definition of pharmaceutical excipients, basically we all know that you have the active pharmaceutical ingredients or API, and you also have the non-active or the inactive pharmaceutical ingredients, which are the excipients. Basically, why are we using excipients? To ensure an efficacious drug product with desirous properties and a good manufacturing process. And we all know that excipients are crucial for drug delivery in the body. And the resultant biological, chemical, and physical properties of the drug product are affected by the excipients chosen and their concentration and interactions with the API, leading to the consistency of drug release and bioavailability, stability including protection from degradation, and ease of administration to the target patients by the route, selected route or the intended route. So we can understand that when we talk of the APIs, the active pharmacological ingredient, its delivery, its biological availability, its solubility, and all these factors are influenced by the choice of excipients. So pharmaceutical excipients have a very important role. We all know that. The selection of the right excipient is so important for design of a desired dosage form with the properties which we want. We all know that the properties, we are all familiar with these properties. They do not have any therapeutic properties by themselves. However, they aid in the processing of the drug delivery system. As I said, they enhance the stability, bioavailability, and the patient acceptability, promote the product identification, or improve other attributes of overall effectiveness or delivery of the drug during storage or use. Particularly, storage is a very important factor which should be taken into account. Characteristics, we are familiar: physically and chemically inert, stable by themselves and in combination with drug and other components, acceptable by regulatory agencies in all countries where it is to be marketed, should be non-toxic, compatible with other ingredients, and with primary packaging material. So at the moment when we are talking of research or in-house research, normally we test the compatibility of the excipients with the drug. However, with the with the drug and other ingredients, and also with the packaging material, this is to be taken into account, and this is in nutshell the main point of the slide, that the primary packaging material also has to be taken into account. They should be, the excipient should be commercially available in a satisfactory or standard trade in all countries where the product is to be fabricated, and of course do not have any harmful effect on the bioavailability of drugs, free from any microbiologic load or contamination as per standard, and they should have good organoleptic properties. This is all we are all familiar with. It's just putting it all together here. Then the normal classification of excipients is basically whether it is biodegradable, non-biodegradable. We have tried to put a classification based on 4 characteristics, because we are talking in terms of the global scenario, that based on the type, based on function, based on formulation, and based on the region. Based on type, we can classify them as organic and inorganic substances. Based on function, we can classify them as to their role in a formulation, whether it's the tablet, so it's going to be it is going to be a diluent, a binder, a disintegrant, a glidant, a coating material. And I hope I am not going very fast, Dr. Satish. Is it okay?
Yeah, ma'am, it's okay, ma'am. It's going on fine, ma'am.
On the basis of formulation, we can classify them into oral, topical, or parenteral. And based on the region, we can classify it because we are going to talk in terms of the global pharmaceutical excipient market also. So in terms of North America, Europe, Asia Pacific, Latin America, and the Middle East and Africa. Basically, how the excipients are being utilized, how they are being produced, who are the major consumers of excipients. Based on that, the market is classified as these into these 5 regions. Then we come into the type of excipients. Basically, you've got organic chemicals and inorganic chemicals. Mainly, the organic chemicals are the ones which are being used mainly. They are classified into oleochemicals, carbohydrates, petrochemicals, proteins. This is the classification of the organic chemicals. Basically, this is how the carbohydrates are divided into sugar, cellulose, and starch. Then, of course, you could have the modified starches and you could have the converted starches. Then you have the petrochemicals, you have all the povidones, the acrylic polymers, the glycols, the mineral hydrocarbons. These are the petrochemicals. And of course, the inorganic ones, of course, you have the calcium phosphates, metal oxides, calcium carbonates, and calcium sulfates. Then we come to, I've only talked in terms of the types because we are familiar with, of course, how they are classified in terms of their property and in terms of basically the type of dosage form. So how should you select the appropriate excipient? This is the most important step when we are talking in terms of commercial scenario also. A carefully chosen excipient it may reduce the manufacturing cost. It could be multifunctional, enhance the patient's experience by offering paste masking properties, must have good organoleptic properties, conform to pharmacopoeial regulations, be easy to source and work effectively. Now, in this, there are 2 points, basically. When we are talking that the excipient should not be very expensive. That is the first point. Because when we are talking of selecting an excipient for a formulation, it should not increase the cost of the formulation. So the manufacturing costs should be minimal depending on the choice of the excipient. If it is multifunctional, that is all the more better. And of course, it should conform to the pharmacopoeial regulations. Then it should be easy to obtain and working with it should be comfortable. That is easy to source and work effective. When you are working with this excipient, there are no specific special precautions because then on a commercial scale, it becomes difficult to handle. So it should be easy to source and work effectively. Then the right excipient should have the ideal pharmacokinetic properties for intended pharmaceutical application, and it should also work well with existing equipments or fit into the manufacturing plan. That is the most important thing to remember, is that any choice of excipient, a lot of people are working on excipients, and we also in the institute are working on a lot of natural excipients. But the primary cost is that the cost of procuring, the cost of extraction, the cost of basically validation and quality standards should not raise the price of the excipients. So that is important. For the commercially viable excipient, the cost factor is very, very important. Then, of course, I'll quickly run through these slides because I suppose we are all familiar with these excipients used in solid dosage forms. You have the fillers or diluents, you've got binders. But one thing why I put it here is that when we go through the global excipient market, the highest share of the excipient market is taken by the fillers or diluents. They have the largest share in the pharmaceutical excipient market, followed by the binders. So they are very important excipients as far as the pharmaceutical excipient market in the global scenario goes. Then, of course, you have fillers, diluents, then you have these binders, dry binders, different types of binders. You have the disintegrants, you have the super disintegrants, you have the anti-adherents, you have the lubricants, and here basically multifunctional excipients have a very important role as far as your anti-adherent, glidants, lubricants go. A lot of roles are combined into a single excipient. So next is your, for the soft gelatin capsules, you have the plasticizer, then you have the coating agents for the tablets. And of course, colorants, your flavors, the top tablet coating materials, and then of course excipients used in the liquid dosage forms. We are familiar with the solvents, the co-solvents, buffers, the preservatives, the antioxidants, the wetting agents for suspensions, anti-foaming agents, thickening agents, humectants, chelating agents. And for emulsions, you've got the flocculating agents, your emulsifying agents. Then for excipients, which are used for aerosols, the propellants. And then you have the structure forming excipients, which are used in the semi-solid dosage form, which give you the gel-like structure. You have the preservatives, the antioxidants, gelling agents, emollients, and the suppository bases. Then, of course, this is quickly running through all the excipients which we use for the solid, liquid, and the semi-solid dosage form. Then we come to the basic distinction of natural and synthetic excipients. Of course, the preferred excipients for pharmaceutical formulations are the synthetic excipients. Though we talk in terms of how important it is in terms of biodegradability, getting back to nature, but the most important thing, like they've got low sensitivity to moisture, which is a very important role. However, because of the source of synthetic excipients, we talked in terms of petrochemical based excipients and so on and so forth, gradually the role of natural excipients in the pharmaceutical industry is increasing. You cannot compare the synthetic and natural excipient because the majority share is still held by the synthetic excipients. But gradually, the role of natural based excipients that we get from nature is increasing. Why? It's self-obvious. They are biodegradable. They are easily available. Majority are non-toxic, and of course, the cost is not high. Because they are renewable, give you a continuous supply, biocompatibility. All these things are basically propelling the excipient market gradually towards inclusion of natural based excipient sourced from nature, which will be biodegradable. And we all know how important it is that whatever formulations we develop, whatever APIs and excipients we use, because if it is not biodegradable, it will be there in nature and it will pollute our land resources. It is going to pollute the water resources. Therefore, it's important that gradually we shift to not only the excipients, but gradually even the packaging material which we use for formulations should be such which is biodegradable and goes back to nature. Of course, these are certain other important aspects of the natural excipients. Then that basically the chemical modifications overcome the disadvantage. One of the major disadvantages of natural excipient is microbial contamination. So if you are going to do a chemical modification of the natural excipient, it would overcome the disadvantage of microbial contamination. Now, another thing, other important aspect is that nearly 75% of the world population relies mainly on plants and plant extracts for healthcare. And the plant-derived drugs also account for a huge market. However, the Indian contribution is less than 2,000 crores. So we are also talking in terms of drugs, not just the excipients. Now, India is one of the world's 12 biodiversity centers with presence of 16 different agro-commercial zones and biotic provinces, biomes, and so on. So India is a potential area from which you can develop natural based excipients and also drugs from natural origins. We are familiar with how natural excipients and excipient markets are important. We are all familiar with all these things, how they are being used as bioadhesives, as binders, in terms of thickeners, and so on and so forth. The advantages we are familiar, that they are safer, easily available, they are basically biodegradable, all these other advantages. Limitations. There is variability in material sourced natural materials. Then structurally, they are more complex. Sometimes the extraction costs are high and there's a chance of heavy metal contamination associated with herbal excipient. So these are the 4 things which are the limitations of natural excipient. The extraction process of some materials, not all is high, but some it is high. And of course, the major problem is of heavy metal contamination. Why heavy metal contamination? We know a lot of materials which are being exported have this problem with the developed countries because of the heavy metal contamination. So that heavy metal contamination has to be taken care of. And from where does the heavy metal contamination come from? Heavy metal contamination is basically due to the pollution of our land and water resources. That is one of the major reasons from which there's contamination of the land on which you are growing the plants, or from where the natural excipients are sourced, and also the water resources are polluted. Recently, some time back, you must have seen there was news in the how the vegetables and others being sold in different metropolises are polluted with heavy metals. They are very heavily polluted because the river water is polluted, the land is polluted. From the villages, you don't have this problem, but in the bigger cities, this problem is there. Even the food which you are eating, the vegetables, the fruits are being contaminated with heavy metals. So this is one of the major problems of the natural excipients. This is just basically showing you what are the limitations. Now, then we talk in terms of the global pharmaceutical excipient market. Like there's a report which has been recently published on August 16, just exactly a month back, from MedGadget, and which talks in terms of the global pharmaceutical market. Excipient market is valued as US $7,687 million in 2020, and this market is expected to reach US $11,635 million in a span of 7 years, with compound annual growth rate of 6.1% over the forecast period. Now, we all know that the COVID-19 basically affected your pharmaceutical business also. Because of the lockdown, the major problem was the supply of raw materials from manufacturing centers, and this slowed down drug development and manufacturing. This is precisely what has happened in the 1.5 years of COVID. When there was lockdown, that pharmaceutical business slowed down. But then there is a brighter side to that also, that pharmaceutical excipient market, since the formulations are not being manufactured, or obviously this would have an impact on the excipient market also. However, the company shifted their focus in the development of vaccines for the coronavirus. It had a negative impact on the other segments of the market, but definitely this had a positive impact also on the excipients which are being utilized for the development of vaccines. So that market boomed because of the development of vaccines. This is basically the pharmaceutical excipients market, the revenue share by functionality. This is a data of 2019. So as I told you, the chunk of the pharmaceutical, major chunk is occupied by the fillers and dilutes. they occupy the major share of the market, followed by the binders. So these two pharmaceutical excipients, and and third is the suspension and viscosity agents. You can say virtually these three segments are occupying more than 50% of the market, right? So this is how it is. Basically, your fillers and diluents and binders, they occupy the revenue share. So there is a great potential because this is what is demanded by the pharmaceutical companies for their formulations, the fillers and diluents and binders. So therefore, these two have a great market share, followed by the disintegrants, the suspension and viscosity agents, the coating agents, then of course the lesser share of colorants and preservatives. But major chunk is being occupied by the fillers and diluents and binders. They occupy a major share of the market. Now, out of this, who holds, we talked in terms of the geographical market. North America holds a major share of the pharmaceutical excipient market, and it is also expected to show a similar trend in the future. North America, basically the United States. United States excipient industry is further expected to grow because as new active pharmaceutical ingredients are developed and novel technologies are being adopted, what will happen? Obviously, you will look towards innovative multifunctional excipients, and specialty blends can be expected to arrive in the market. So as new active ingredients are developed and as new technologies are being adopted by the pharmaceutical industry, what will happen? The same is going to influence the excipient industry also, by virtue of coping with the requirement of these new technologies, new dosage forms, and new APIs. You will also need to innovate in terms of multifunctional excipients and specialty blends in the market. This will be so important. Similarly, the next important area for global pharmaceutical excipient is Europe. Because, and it holds, as far as if you see in terms of figures, the European market has 32% share of the pharmaceutical excipients industry, due to the presence of huge medicine agencies based on excipients. When we go to the major producer of pharmaceutical excipients, you will find majority of the companies are Europe and US based. North America, of course, holds the second highest share in the excipient market. And the Asia Pacific region, of which India is a part, is supposed to show the highest growth rate. It will not have a major chunk of the market, but it will definitely show the highest growth rate compared to the past few years. And they say the highest growth would be witnessed in this region. And if the growth is high, what will happen? Also, the share of the market, which India and the other Asia Pacific countries hold, would also increase. Now, what is the market size, pharmaceutical excipient market size for the Asia Pacific region? Now, what is the Asia Pacific region? Includes India, China, Japan, South Korea, Australia, New Zealand, Thailand, Malaysia, Vietnam, and the Philippines. Now, this market, excipient market, was $1.96 billion in 2020, and it is supposed to be growing at the rate of 7.21% and would be worth $2.78 billion by 2026. So as we said, this would witness the highest compound annual growth rate in terms of the pharmaceutical excipient market. Why is it so? Because of the low cost of raw materials, availability of a cost-effective workforce, and untapped resources it offers in manufacturing facilities. Emerging players in this market give stiff competition to the top 10 players. The top 10 excipient market players occupy 70% of the total market. However, the Asia Pacific region is expected to grow at the rate of 7.21% and would remain the dominant region in terms of force, in terms of growth. And of course, the other factors is also reason for the growth in the market of the Asia is chronic diseases, the rapid increase in geriatric population. We know the geriatric population is very high in Japan, and also in India, the geriatric population is growing. So therefore, this is also a cause of market growth. The growing demand for generics also, that accelerates demands in this market. Why? Because India, as you know, is a major supplier of generics to the European and American countries, major generic supplier. And of course, the government is supporting this growth rate, and quality drugs and growth factors lie in the development of research and development institutes are also coming up through Asian Pacific. And we also know that the government policy of Make in India also has attracted a lot of companies, foreign companies, with their manufacturing facilities based in India. So therefore, that has also led to an increase in the growth of this particular market. Then we come to specifically, we talked of the global market, we talked in terms of the Asia Pacific market, and we now talk in terms of the Indian pharmaceutical excipient market. Now, that is, of course, we know that the Indian pharmaceutical industry is among the fastest growing industries in India, and to meet the requirements of GMP and international standards, the companies are modernizing and changing. And we also know, we'll talk about it later, that IPEC also have got an India chapter now. The International Pharmaceutical Excipients Council has an Indian chapter also. So leading pharmaceutical companies are your, of course, Associated Capsules worldwide. This is serving the pharmaceutical industry. It is the second largest manufacturer of empty hard capsules in the world. Then you have Colorcom, you have Inchem International, you have Microlabs, you have Dow, you've got Lubrizol, BASF, you have Merck Groups, and so on. Are the founder members? These are all founder members of the International Pharmaceutical Excipient Council, the India chapter. Now, what is IPEC, or the International Pharmaceutical Excipients Council? It was started in 1991, and it is an international industry association. And who are the stakeholders? The manufacturers, the distributors, and end users of excipient are the stakeholders of this IPEC. And it is basically covering IPEC Americas, IPEC Europe, IPEC China, IPEC India, and IPEC Japan. So they have got 5 chapters: IPEC Americas, which will cover the United States, IPEC Europe, IPEC China, IPEC Japan, and the latest is IPEC India. So they are basically the manufacturers, distributors, and end users of excipients are coming together to standardize and validate the excipient standards. The goal of IPIC is to contribute to the development, improvement, and harmonization of international excipient standards, to introduce useful new excipients to the marketplace, and to develop best practice and guidance concerning excipients. Basically, IPIC published this good manufacturing practices guide in the year 1995. It was further revised in 2001 to align with ISO standards, and to bring in 2006 to bring it further up to date. According to the International Pharmaceutical Excipient Council, the definition of pharmaceutical excipients is that they are substances other than the active pharmaceutical ingredient which have been properly evaluated for safety and are intentionally incorporated in a drug delivery system. So the important issue as far as the IPIC definition of API is safety. Safety is an important parameter in the excipients. Now, IPIC has basically put down guidelines on excipients. They are basically, goal is to establish the data needed to support the promotion of a material for marketing as an excipient, as well as to indicate the steps used to establish the requirements for use of an excipient by the pharmaceutical organization or industry. Basically, they are harmonizing the international standards for excipients. Then, of course, this guideline covers all excipients, including existing and new. Basically, it is providing guideline to manufacturers with methodologies for assessment of overall composition and how this data might be revealed to clients and controllers. It furnishes with a means of understanding what influences the composition of excipients and how this could affect their medicinal production. Functionality or route of excipient is not considered by this guide, which must be assessed by on a case-to-case basis. Basically, route of administration is not considered in this particular guide. Of course, then they have got the excipient stability program guide for appraisal of stability of their excipients. We talk always in terms of stability of the drug product. We talk of all the ICH guidelines for the stability. So here we are talking in terms of stability of excipient. And this is applicable to existing. Establish a stability study program for a pharmaceutical excipient. Then, of course, they also have the good distribution practices guideline. Basically, of distributors who are selling, storing, or repackaging pharmaceutical excipients or their combination. Basically, it includes all who are in part of the trade and distribution processes. The transporters, the warehousing companies, the brokers, traders, suppliers, all are part of this particular good distribution practices. Then you have the excipient information package is available, and all this information, as you can see, is available on the IPIC website. All this information, if you want to get back to it, is available on the IPIC website. Of course, then you have preparation and appropriate use of a certificate of analysis for pharmaceutical excipient. The goal is to standardize the content and suggest a format for certificate of analysis for excipient. Up till now, when we talk of research projects, we always talk of certificate of analysis for the API, active pharmaceutical ingredient. We are not talking in terms of certificate of analysis of an excipient, but then IPIC is also given a guideline for the certificate of analysis of excipients. Then they've got whatever changes, basically evaluation of significance of changes involving the manufacturing and distribution practices of excipient. So what is basically what I'm trying to say, that the IPEC since its establishment in 1991 is constantly updating, constantly upgrading itself to meet the requirements of the changed scenario. So this is what IPEC's role is. Basically, it's standardizing international guidelines for excipient and upgrading it as per the needs of the stakeholders. Stakeholders are, who are the stakeholders? We said, who are the manufacturers of the excipients, the end users, all those are the stakeholders. Then of course, there's a glossary of terms also, general terms. Then the IPEC Europe has also put guidelines on risk assessment of excipients. Basically, patient safety through the evaluation of risks and application of suitable GMPs to the manufacture and supply of each excipient. Up till now, we talked of patient safety risks only with reference to the API. Now, IPEC Europe has come to basically talk in terms of patient safety through evaluation of risks and application of GMPs to the manufacture and supply of excipients also. So according to these guidelines, each excipient is to be evaluated for the risks it can pose to the quality and purity of the medicinal product. And from these risks, the appropriate GMPs are determined. Then this basically, we sourced it from the European regulations and how excipient risk, how we are supposed to document the risk, do a gap analysis, and what is basically the excipient risk, whether in terms of the source, use or function. The risk can be classified as a high, medium or low, basically. In terms of what is to be the GMP requirements, what is to be the certification, then we do in terms of a gap analysis and how this gap is to be bridged by using a control strategy. This is how they have asked the excipient manufacturers to document. Then, of course, basically, the joint IPEC PQG good manufacturing practices guidelines have also come, and PQG stands for the Pharmaceutical Quality Group. These practices guidelines have come in the year 2017, and of course the basic framework is ISO 9001. Then good distribution practices guidelines also have been updated in 2017. Now, basically, Indian companies are receiving not a lot of approvals for generic drugs in the US. So basically, out of these drugs, 40% have no solubility issues, and excipients would be helpful to improve the solubility parameters. Then, of course, IPEC India chapter was launched in the year 2014. It is headquartered in Mumbai. And it is basically primary objectives is to promote the excipient industries in India, which aims to be a knowledge base and resource center for the Indian excipient industry. And over 250 national and multinational excipient manufacturers and are members of at least one regional IPEC. So more and more excipient manufacturers and distributors are becoming part of IPEC. This is of course based at Mumbai. Then of course, what is we talk in terms of EXIPAT. It is a voluntary international scheme to provide independent third-party certification of manufacturers, suppliers, and distributors of pharmaceuticals and other initiatives, Indian excipient manufacturers and suppliers. Then, of course, we talked in terms of European Union guideline. How much time do I have, Dr. Satish?
You have 30 more minutes, ma'am. Till 3:15, ma'am.
Okay, okay. Then you have the European Union guidelines of 2015 on the formalized risk assessment for ascertaining the good manufacturing practice for excipients of medicinal products for human use. This is basically, European Union is the first agency which has come forward with these guidelines. We talked in brief about these guidelines. So basically, they talk in terms of the risk management procedure should be incorporated in the quality system of the manufacturing, basically, for ascertaining the appropriate GMP for excipients. Basically, you have to assess what is the risk and how you are going to use the appropriate GMP for the excipients. Then, of course, these are the details. It specifies that these guidelines do not apply to systems which are added to stabilize active substances that cannot exist on their own. So they do not apply to these substances. Of course, basically, they are talking, what are the areas? They are talking in terms of the risk assessment. They are talking in terms of viral contamination. They are talking in terms of microbiological contamination or impurities originating from the raw materials or from the toxins or pesticides. Sterility assurance for excipients claimed to be sterile. Then carried over, impurities carried over from other processes in absence of dedicated equipment. Then environmental control, storage, transportation conditions, the cold chain management, the supply chain complexity, stability, packaging integrity, everything. So all these risk factors are taken into account in these guidelines, in this European Union guidelines. Then, of course, international, you got EXIPAT, which is the International Pharmaceutical Excipient Certification. Regulators, what is EXIPAT? Regulators basically require excipient users to qualify their suppliers based on GMP, GDP audits. So basically, if I am the end user of an excipient, I have a manufacturing facility for a formulation and I source my excipients from a particular supplier, then I have to ensure that I qualify my suppliers based on regular GMP and GDP audit of my suppliers. Then you have to qualify the suppliers based on GMP and GDP audit. They have indicated that third-party auditing of suppliers is acceptable if a creditable certification body issues certificates and audit reports by employing qualified auditors who are demonstrably credible in suitable GMP, GDP standards and in the needs of the pharmaceutical. So basically, the regulators, the regulatory agencies are accepting third-party auditing of suppliers if it is issued by a certification body. And this certification body will have to use qualified auditors who have credibility in terms of GMP and GDP standards, who have demonstrable credibility of GMP and GDP standards. Then, so EXIPAT is a non-profit organization that owns and manages oversight of such an independent, high-quality third-party certification scheme available to pharmaceutical manufacturers and distributors worldwide. Basically,
ಸೌಂಡ್ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ಬಹಳ ಚಲೋ ಅದಲ್ಲ
huh?
ಹತ್ರ ಹಿಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಕೇಳಿಸ್
Am I audible? Or
Yes, ma'am. Yes, you are audible, ma'am.
Dear participants, please mute your mic.
This was basically developed by suppliers and users of excipients. And you have GMP standards for excipients, you have GDP standards, you have auditor competency, you have the certification body qualifications. So EXIPAC basically is providing certification standards for pharmaceutical excipient suppliers. Then how it works? How does EXIPAC work? Basically, an ISO 9001-2015 approved excipient supplier contracts with an EXIPAC approved independent third-party certification body, agrees to the audit scope and standards to be used, whether it is to be GDP or it has to be GMP or both. If the audit shows compliance, the certification body provides them with an EXIPAC certificate and audit report to share with their customers. Certification is valid for 3 years and there is an annual surveillance audit and it is verifiable on EXIPAC website. So basically, this is how the EXIPAC works. Then this is basically showing it as a flow chart as to how it works. The benefits. What are the benefits of EXIPAC? It saves both suppliers and their customers money. It is provided by third-party, approved by third-party certification, audit burden and cost supported by also the regulators are accepting it. So it helps the excipient end users to identify qualified suppliers. So if I am an end user of an excipient from EXIPAC, I can say that if there is a certification of this particular supplier of excipients, then I can definitely source my excipients from this particular supplier. Now, these are the certain characteristics. Who are the suppliers? Who are the manufacturers, distributors, brokers, traders, resellers? These are the different terms. Then these are a list of certain international pharmaceutical excipient companies. You have Armor, you have BASF. BASF basically got a specialization in polymer chemistry, and then you have the Beniogalin range of water-soluble filler binders. Then you have Biogrunt, you have Budenheim, right? Then of course you have DuPont, we are evolving, and Evonik, I suppose everyone would be familiar because Evonik is a well-known name with the Eudragits. Eudragits are basically from Evonik, and we all are using Eudragits in formulations. Then you have the Fuji Chemical for the unique. They've got a spray drying technology with. So they develop excipients which have got extraordinary properties. Then of course Gattefoss, we know in terms of lipid excipients, right? Then you have Ideal Cures, coating systems for oral dosage forms. Then you have Kerry, you have Lipoid, you have Lubrizol. Lubrizol is the world's largest manufacturer of your carbomers, your carbopols and cross-linked polymers and so on and so forth. Then you have McGill, produces for direct compression. Then you have OMVA, you've got Pharmaspheres, you have Pharmaline Incorporated, you have Pharmatrans. So this is a list of some good excipient manufacturers worldwide. Then, of course, a brief into how the quality by design approach can be applied to excipients. We all know basically what is quality by design, or QBD. Is basically that quality is inbuilt in a system. The quality is considered from the earliest stages of the development process, and this is built into the drug product and process from the outset. So basically every stage quality is inbuilt. So this is quality by design. We've planned that we will build in quality and each and every step. So now we need to incorporate excipient into the quality by design project, which can be challenging because the variability of excipients must be factored into product design to ensure many excipients are made by companies serving multiple markets. So a company is making an excipient, which is not only for the pharmaceutical market, it might be used in the other markets also. So how are we going to embed that quality into such excipients? So these are certain challenges of building in quality by design into the excipients. So basically, if we need to inbuild a quality by design approach into the manufacturing of excipient, we need to create an awareness about the QBD process among the excipient manufacturers and how it can impact them. So if we inbuild the quality by design approach in excipients, this could help address the variability and other features in excipients. Basically, excipients have evolved from when we said they are just inert materials. Today, they are able to improve the quality, the stability, the functionality, the safety, solubility, and acceptance to patient criteria. So pharmaceutical excipients have got a bigger role now compared to what it was earlier, when it was just said that they are inert materials incorporated into a dosage form. So therefore, more so, quality by design needs to be incorporated into the manufacture of excipients. Basically, when it's incorporated, and it will make the system more robust, and it will also ensure that the variability among excipients is minimized. And of course, the IPEC has come forward by incorporation of pharmaceutical excipients into product development using quality by design. So already the International Pharmaceutical Excipients Council has incorporated this approach into a new QBD guide. It's basically introduced the quality by design and pharmaceutical formulation development concept to an excipient manufacturers and suppliers. It is explaining how you can incorporate it during product development, how to incorporate it, right? They have recommendations related to impact of variability and how variability of excipients will influence the formulation quality, drug product quality. The guide is applicable to excipient use throughout the pharmaceutical product development process using a QBD approach described by the International Council for Harmonization, ICH Q8, as well as ICH guidelines Q9, Q10, Q11, and Q12. So IPEC has already started this particular process. So to conclude, what do we conclude from all this? We can conclude that the Asia Pacific region is to witness a robust growth in the pharmaceutical excipient market due to the availability of cheap labor and lower cost of raw materials. And also countries like India, China, and of course from the Latin Americas, Brazil are expected to be the major contributors in this market, because as you know, per capita income is also increasing in this country, and also the number of companies from this region are increasing. And a lot of companies from the developed region are willing to outsource their manufacturing activities into these countries. In India, as I said earlier, Make in India is the byword in terms of manufacturing in India. The government is promoting it. Then basically the market is also expected to grow due to the utilization of parenteral products, because the global burden of chronic and lifestyle diseases is growing, and there is heavy investment by companies on the development of biologicals. Then multifunctional excipients are being used to reformulate the existing drugs and create more cost-effective and efficient drugs, bring more opportunities for the pharmaceutical excipient industry. Therefore, multifunction excipients have a major role in the global pharmaceutical excipient market. And it is hampered to a certain, these are the limitations of the market also. Those are the positive aspects. These are the limitations that the excipient producers are not investing sufficiently in the R&D facilities for excipients. Then, of course, regulatory requirements. We are talking in terms of QBD for manufacturing side. The cost of equipment and maintenance is also high. So these are certain limitations. That means there is to be more investment in producers in case of if we have to overcome these limitations. Then, of course, in the United States, the rising global demand has fueled the growth of drug production. And therefore, of course, when the drug production goes up, the excipient consumption also will go up. So within the pharmaceutical industry, the downward price pressure, reduced R&D productivity, and stringent regulations have forced drug manufacturers to increasingly turn to excipients with the intent to develop differentiated and value-adding products at low cost without. So since there is a lot of pressure on the industry, so the industry is looking more towards manufacturing of excipients and value addition. One example of enhanced micro-level demand is the blooming of extended release formulations, which is made possible through proper excipient application. We know that all extended release formulations require proper choice of excipient. So, of course, this demand of excipient. The demand of excipients is increasing in the emerging markets. Therefore, proper expansion planning, focus on R&D innovations could offer high potential and growth. So, if we plan, manufacturers plan properly, there is immense scope for expansion of the market. Then, of course, as I said, that the binder segment and the functionality is expected to be the fastest growing. I showed you that pie chart. In that, we talked in terms of the fillers occupying the major share of that pie chart, but the binder segment is expected to grow in the period. See, we are in 2021. In this 6-year period, it is expected to grow the fastest growing. It might not take the major share of the market. Let's be very clear. But it would be the fastest growing segment in the market. And major market players such as the Rocket Group have manufactured multiple pharmaceutical binders with different degrees of water solubility or dispersal. So more and more pharmaceutical excipient manufacturing companies are basically working on developing good quality excipients. I would suggest to all the participants to go to the site of these companies, particularly you go to Evonik, what all information you will get. And of course, there's pharmaceuticalexcipients.com is there, and it gives you a lot of information how excipients are evolving and developing. That's all. Thank you all for a patient hearing. It's been a long time when I've been speaking. Thank you. Any questions? Any queries?
Thank you, ma'am. Actually, there is no questions in the chat box.
So I suppose I've been able to connect with my audience. This is what
Exactly.
I say that. And anyway, you have my email ID, Dr. Satish and Dr. Praveen.
Yes, ma'am.
In case anyone has any query later on also, they can address it to me. And
Sure.
I thank you for giving me this opportunity, Dr. Satish and Dr. Praveen. And thank you all participants for a patient hearing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.